But where we're grounded is in this number, 5 exabytes of data. But the amazing thing is that this is now the data that we produce every day of our lives. And this is an incredible amount of data. And a lot of cities, as we've talked about, have been trying to leverage this in the idea of the smart city. It's the idea of being able to sense the city. Not sensible in optimize, but sensible in that there are unique opportunities in both understanding and documenting the city, but also creating new experiences that come out of the use of data. If you think about the data that we're producing now in the city, it's from every platform that uses bits and in some cases atoms. It's every time you park your car and pay with a credit card. It's every time you go to the ATM. But how do you actually represent that? For us, one of the challenges that we've been doing in Singapore, working with the government, is how do you bring it together in a way that is not only accessible to policymakers, but also the general public? And in this case, we worked with a small company called Qualcomm several years ago. And the question was, okay, people are talking about this thing about a sensor being everywhere that we now call the Internet of Things. And the challenge with the Internet of Things is that we still don't have use cases that we really care about. You can have a sensor in that chair telling you whether someone's sitting in it or not, but does anyone care? So for us, could you actually care about the thing you care the least about? And what's the thing you care the least about? The thing you throw away. It's amazing that we know so much about the supply chain, but you take this computer that, we know literally the geological processes that created, but you take this, you throw it in the trash, no idea. No idea what happens to it. So we create these little sensors at first, and with that, we track trash. So all of these self-reporting devices told us where they go, which now allows us to ask questions of efficiency and environmental concern. But it's not just the devices that we carry, it's actually some of the dumb infrastructure that we have that also communicates back. So we use the data set of the Internet of Taxis. The 13,500 taxis in the city of New York have 340 million trips in the city in a year. And this drawing is just a picture of the pickups and drop-offs. So you can see in the island of Manhattan, it's pretty balanced with pickups and drop-offs between the yellow and the blue, and then a little less so in the outer boroughs. And being kind of academia, we asked, out of 340 million trips, there's got to be some inefficiencies. So doing a little bit of math, we found that if New Yorkers, tall order, were willing to do 2 things: share their ride with one additional party, and were willing to have a time tolerance of 2 minutes, you can reduce the number of individual car trips in New York by 40%. But again, going back to the idea of visualization, it's one thing for us to just give a paper to City Hall and no one in City Hall is ever going to read it. So how do you get change? Sometimes you talk to the people themselves. One of the pioneers of understanding people in place did it with a high-tech technology of the Super 8 camera. The problem is that these are one-off technologies, and there are 2 that we think have potential to really help explain where people are. One is a device in our pocket, and one is a device that is everywhere in the city, the streetlight. So especially because of our relationship with the mobile phones, not only can you know where people are in aggregate with the anonymized cell phone data, with this kind of compulsion towards quantifying our everyday lives, we now have the opportunity to move from the quantified self to the quantified community. So really trying to draw a map of where people are. And the amazing thing is, with this data, is that it's incredibly precise. So looking at both camera technologies and then thermal sensors to actually optimize the street intersection. Through this technology, it's actually identifying the cars that are moving through the intersection and trying to give a profile of how many emissions are being released by that vehicle. So if a big truck is coming through, it's probably better to hold up the people, let that truck through so it doesn't have to idle, and then speed up again, producing more emissions, and just letting it through, and then making the time back up for the individuals. And we found we can reduce auto emissions by 40% with just very minor tweaks. And we wanted to actually look at our city and building occupancy. So we used the most pervasive network that we had, our Wi-Fi system. The amazing thing is that you can actually begin to profile different buildings through the Wi-Fi and its energy consumption. The problem is that we're heating our buildings and cooling our buildings whether people are there or not. Maybe we can rethink it. Maybe it's not just deciding whether the room gets warm or not. Maybe it's actually deciding whether you get your own thermal bubble of comfort that follows you around. So this is local warming that we actually installed at the Venice Biennale that would actually follow you as you move through the space. This is the kind of glamorous shot. It's not actually tracking. It's actually giving you, through kind of the sensing opportunity, a new experience of a thermal bubble of heat. And I'll show you just kind of one project really quickly, a project that we're doing now in creating kind of new sensors for a question that people haven't really asked before. We've done a lot with water quality, and we can measure urban health through our waterways. But could you actually measure human health? So how do you leverage the data that exists in our gut, let alone our collective gut? And if you think about how we look at health right now, it's very reactive, it's very slow, and it's very expensive. Versus actually moving with technology in a way that actually can process data quickly to measure public health. So what we're doing this with are two probes, our prototype called Mario, and on left, Luigi. And they're actually going into the sewers to collect basically the stuff that we eject from our body every time we flush the toilet. So with that, these projects reflect kind of the community of disciplines. Going back to the idea of multiple fingerprints, these are architects and planners, social scientists, computer scientists working together in a collaborative way. It is about a network of ideas and a network of people that bring people together, and I think also reflect us as a community of researchers. So on behalf of that community, thank you for having me here.